The police officer froze when a German Shepherd rushed toward him dragging a wooden cane, like it was a lifeline. The dog's frantic whimpers echoed through the empty road as it pulled at his uniform, desperate for him to follow. Seconds later, the truth he discovered would break every heart watching. Officer Daniel had driven this forest road 100 times, but that morning felt unusually still. The early sunlight filtered through the towering trees, casting long shadows across the empty pavement. It was supposed to be a quiet patrol, just a routine sweep before the day grew busy. Daniel took a slow sip of coffee, enjoying the rare calm, when something up ahead caught his eye. He squinted, lowering the cup. A large German Shepherd stood motionless in the center of the road, staring directly at his cruiser. Daniel eased his foot onto the brake. The dog didn't flinch or run. It simply waited, as if stopping him was intentional. Something about its posture sent a chill through him. Daniel stepped out of the cruiser slowly, careful not to startle the animal. He had dealt with lost pets before, frightened strays wandering near the highway. But this dog behaved differently. There was no fear in its eyes, only urgency. As Daniel took a few cautious steps forward, the German Shepherd trotted toward him, holding something between its teeth. When it got close enough, Daniel realized the object was an old, polished wooden cane. The dog whimpered softly, brushing the cane against Daniel's leg as if trying to hand it to him. Then it backed away, staring at him with a pleading look before taking several steps toward the trees. The message was unmistakable. The dog wasn't lost. It needed him to follow. Daniel lifted his radio to his shoulder and notified dispatch that he was stepping away from his vehicle to investigate. The forest around him was quiet, the kind of stillness that made every sound feel louder than it should. The German Shepherd had already moved ahead, pausing at the tree line to make sure Daniel was following. When the officer stepped off the pavement and onto the soft earth, the dog continued deeper into the woods, weaving between bushes and low branches with practiced familiarity. Daniel's boots sank slightly into the damp ground as he followed, brushing aside leaves and twigs. He noticed scattered paw prints pressed into the soil, circling an area repeatedly, as if the dog had been pacing in distress. The deeper they went, the more Daniel felt that this wasn't some simple situation. The dog checked back often, eyes filled with a desperate intensity that pushed Daniel forward. Whatever waited ahead, it was serious, and the shepherd knew it. A faint sound drifted through the trees, so soft Daniel almost dismissed it as wind. But the German Shepherd reacted instantly, ears perked, body tense. The dog bolted forward with a sharp bark, urging Daniel to hurry. He pushed through a thicket of brush, branches scraping his uniform, until the source of the noise became unmistakable. There, lying awkwardly beside a fallen tree trunk, was an elderly man. His clothes were dirty, his face pale and drawn, and one leg twisted in a way that made Daniel's stomach clench. The man's eyes fluttered open, barely able to focus, and another weak groan escaped him. Beside his trembling hand lay a familiar object, another cane, identical to the one the dog had carried. Daniel knelt quickly, checking the man's pulse. It was there, but faint. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man tried to speak, but only a raspy whisper came out. His lips were dry, his breathing shallow. Daniel realized he must have been out here for hours, maybe the entire night. The dog pressed close to the man, whining softly, refusing to let anyone come near without its approval. Daniel had seen loyal dogs before, but nothing like this. The German Shepherd positioned itself protectively beside the elderly man, pressing its body close as if shielding him from the world. Its fur was matted with dirt, leaves tangled in its coat, and several small scratches lined its legs, signs it had struggled through the night. Daniel could almost imagine the dog trying to push the man upright, nudging him, refusing to give up. Every time the man moaned in pain, the dog whimpered, lowering its head as though apologizing for not being able to help more. The bond between them was undeniable, carved from years of companionship. Daniel realized the shepherd must have stayed awake all night, keeping watch, searching desperately for anyone to save its owner. This wasn't just loyalty. It was love in its purest form. Daniel's training snapped into place. He grabbed his radio and spoke quickly, giving dispatch the coordinates and requesting immediate medical assistance. His voice stayed steady, but inside, urgency clawed at him. The elderly man's breathing was shallow, uneven, every second mattered. Meanwhile, the German Shepherd paced anxiously in tight circles, glancing between Daniel and its owner as though afraid help might arrive too late. Each time the man winced, the dog pressed its nose against his arm, whining softly, refusing to let him slip into unconsciousness. Daniel knelt beside the man again, encouraging him to stay awake. "Help is coming. Just hold on." He gently placed a blanket from his patrol kit over the man's trembling body. Finally, in the distance, Daniel heard the faint wail of sirens. The shepherd froze, ears lifted. Relief flickered in its eyes, but fear still lingered. The fight wasn't over yet. Within moments, paramedics rushed through the trees, carrying equipment and moving with practiced precision. Daniel guided them to the elderly man, stepping aside only when he felt the shepherd relax enough to allow strangers near. Even then, the dog hovered close, trembling with worry. The medics knelt beside the man, checking his vitals, speaking calmly as they worked. One of them examined the man's leg and exchanged a grim look with another. "He's badly dehydrated," he murmured. "And this hip looks fractured. If he'd been out here much longer." He didn't finish the sentence. The elderly man mustered enough strength to whisper, "Max stayed all night." His voice cracked, but the pride in it was unmistakable. Daniel glanced at the shepherd Max, whose tired eyes never left his owner. The paramedics confirmed that Max had kept the man awake, nudging him, even bringing damp leaves for moisture. The cane in Daniel's hand suddenly felt heavier. It wasn't just a signal, it had been Max's final plea for help. As the paramedics lifted the elderly man onto the stretcher, Max suddenly panicked. The German shepherd barked sharply, jumping forward as if terrified his owner was being taken away. Daniel tried to reassure him, but Max pushed past him, placing his front paws on the ambulance step. Refusing to budge, the medics exchanged glances, understanding dawning on their faces. One of them crouched down and gently stroked Max's head. "He's coming with us," the paramedic said softly. "We're not separating them." Max immediately quieted, climbing into the ambulance and curling up beside his owner, his trembling body finally beginning to relax. At the hospital, Max stayed pressed against the gurney until nurses gently guided him to a quiet corner of the room. Even then, he refused to rest. He sat rigidly by the doorway, eyes fixed on every movement inside, as doctors worked to stabilize the elderly man. Hours passed, and despite offers of food and water, Max wouldn't move. His entire world was behind that door. Finally, a soft voice drifted into the hallway. "Max." Max's ears shot up. In an instant, he sprinted into the room, nearly slipping on the polished floor. The elderly man lay propped against pillows, weak but awake. Max climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed, licking his owner's trembling hands. Whining with a mixture of relief and exhaustion, the nurses paused, touched by the reunion. Some wiped tears, others simply smiled. The old man looked at Daniel and whispered, "He saved my life." Daniel visited the hospital the next day, unsure what he would find. Max was lying peacefully at the foot of the bed, finally resting now that his owner was safe. The elderly man smiled when he saw Daniel and thanked him for responding so quickly. But Daniel shook his head, pointing at Max. He told them that the real hero was the dog who refused to give up, even when hope seemed impossible. Word of Max's bravery spread through the community, inspiring everyone who heard the story. Daniel knew he would never forget the shepherd's fierce, selfless loyalty that day.